Hey, what's up, Invincible heads, Invincible fans, comic book fans? So, episode 4 of Invincible. Whew, another great episode. Let's get to it, fans. So, if you watched my last episode, I saved spoilers for the end, so I'm going to go into vague details about this 4th episode. So, safe for the last 3 episodes as well. I don't want to spoil anything because it's some good stuff. So this episode, we follow Mark, Invincible, going on a date with Amber, his now girlfriend, I'm assuming. They have to be dating. They haven't made it official, but they're clearly freaking a couple by this point. And we see some nice, cute interactions with them, and I'm just absolutely loving their relationship, and I hope we see it for a good while. And we also see Nolan, kind of dealing with some stuff. Again, it's hard to really talk about it without going into spoilers. So the main point, or the main half of this episode, is Mark and Amber going on a date. Nolan and Damien Darkblood and Debbie's little stuff happening. And the second half is Mark, Invincible, going on a mission to Mars to help these astronauts. They're the first astronauts to go to Mars, and this is where all the real action happens. Some very interesting stuff, some development for later things. Really great episode. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, I'm a fan of the comic book, so I know what is coming, and it's good to see that they're setting a lot of things up. But they have a lot of things that, if you're watching this for the first time, it's just super fun and enjoyable. The mission to Mars was great. It captures the action and the humor from the comic really, really well. The show it copies the comic story pretty well, but it advances it in certain ways. Like the beginning was this hilarious little joke bit that I absolutely loved that was not in the comics. At first I was like, what is happening? I'm like, I don't remember this at all. Did I just forget this portion of the comic? And then it turned out to be a joke, and I was just like, I love it. Great stuff. So I really want to talk spoilers. If you love the first 3 episodes, you will love this. They develop the characters really well. They're setting up towards this big ending, which I think is the big thing that happens in the comic. I'm not sure. Maybe it'll happen in the next 2 episodes, but I feel like they're saving it for the last episode at this point, which is, 4 episodes away? Yeah, I think it's 8 episodes versus 10. I wish it was 10. Get a second season. Anyway, I'm going to talk spoilers. 1, 2, 3, spoilers. So let's start from the beginning. Amber and Mark go on a date. Amber plans the date. They go to this flea market, and it's this very cute moments with them talking or whatever. And Amber's like, "Oh, I know this stuff from the Philippines because I help go help people build houses and everything like that there," which was really cool. Amber is really built up in the animated series versus in the comic book. In the comic book, she's likable, but she's this vaguely thin person with not a lot of personality. She's like this cute, nice girl, and that's essentially it. I liked her in the comics, but I love her in the animated series. This Amber has personality, backstory is just amazing, and I really hope, we see a lot more of her than we did in the comics. So, like, Mark tells her, she's like, "Oh, I've been to Mount Rush, or not Mount Rushmore, freaking, shoot, what's the highest mountain in the world? I should know this. Mount Everest. How did I forget that? I've been to Mount Everest," and she starts asking questions, and he's like, he changes the subject real quick, because the beginning of the episode was him and his dad flying to Mount Everest, which is this fun little opening scene. He's like, "Oh, which is awkward. Like, I've been here," and she's like, "Oh, how'd you get there? Through China and everything?" And he's just like, I flew there," but he can't tell her that yet. So after that, we get the Mahler twins, or one of the Mahler twins, cloning a new clone for himself, because he always has to have one of the clones. It's just his dynamic. So they can argue, and they just work better that way, which we'll see later on, because they don't get along, so you're like, why would he clone each other? It's like, because they work better. They're a better team when they're both united. And when that scene ends, we see Robot again spying on them, and then we go over to the new Guardians, and they're all talking. They're like, "This is fantastic." They're the Guardians headquarters, and there's this big splotch of blood from when the Guardians died, and they're like, "Hey, Cecil, you forgot a spot." And he's like, "I didn't forget a spot. I left that there for you guys to remember. When you think you're fucking hot shit, you're not." It's like, you need to freaking tone it down and remember your legacy and who you are, whatever. Which is true. It's like, these guys are not as powerful or strong as the first Guardians. So they're if Nolan went up against them, they would not stand a chance. They would absolutely die. But then we get a moment between Rex and Robot, where Robot steals Rex's blood. If you read the comics, you know why this is, and at the end of the episode, you see a scene kind of furthering this thing. You're like, oh no, Robot's evil. I don't want to spoil too much of the comic stuff, but he's doing it for a reason, and it's kind of really interesting, and you kind of see hints of it. I guess a little spoilers for the comics. He has a crush on Monster Girl, if you haven't noticed. He talks to her, and he kind of relates to her, but he can't be with her because of his abnormality. That's all I'm going to say. But let's move on. So Damien Darkblood, in the comics, he was a weak character. He was a one-off, pretty much a joke. Robert Kirkman said he always wanted to do more with the character, but he didn't really do much because he was focusing on other story parts. So he kind of just fell out and just kind of became this joke where he solves the mystery, and they're like, oh, we already know that. We knew that for a long time. They had a big battle across the freaking, world and everything, and you're just telling us this stuff. And so he was kind of joked off. But I really like his development here. He's really investigating and everything, and I really like the character. So he gets sent back to hell in this episode, which is crazy. I was like, oh my gosh. But I love what they did with him, and hopefully we see more of him later, or if the comic ever comes back, bring him back, because I really liked him and enjoyed him, and he was doing a good job. And I love this new backstory they gave him, that he was this, I don't know if it's new, I don't know too much about him in the comics. I know he was Invincible and I think Wolfman, but I like the backstory and everything they gave him. He was a very interesting character, so I really hope we see more of him somehow, some way. Fun character, maybe a one-shot in the comics, who knows. Okay, so let's see what we have. I'm looking at my notes over here so I don't forget things, because I'm constantly forgetting things. So Nolan, I love what they've done with Omni-Man in this comic book series, or animated series, versus in the comic book. The comic book, we spent some time with him, but it's very focused on Invincible. Here we see him struggling with his doubts and insecurities of what he has to do. He loves this world, and he constantly says that he's like, I love this world. My plans changed when I met you, Debbie, and then when I had you, Mark, and it's just become better for him. So he has something he needs to do, which I don't want to spoil too much. If you read the comics, you know exactly what it is, and you can already tell probably from watching this show that, he is up to something that's not going to be good, and he's not really this good guy. Obviously, he's not a good guy. He killed the Guardians in the first episode. But he's kind of struggling with it, and he even goes on a date with Debbie where he's just talking to her, and he's like, I really just need to hear that you trust me. But you just see him also freaking just falling apart. Even Debbie confronts him. She's like, what's with you? Ever since Mark got his powers, you've been acting weird and strange and confrontive and angry or whatever. And he tells her a reason, and it's probably part of it that he's scared of what's going to happen to Mark and the family. But it's not necessarily because Mark is becoming a superhero. It's because what's coming and everything. So I really love what they're doing with his character. Just great, fantastic stuff. And lastly, I guess we'll focus on Mars a little bit. Big part of the episode, but I love the drama between Nolan and all the characters. So Mark goes to Mars with these astronauts. Secretly, he's on a secret mission, which he sucks at. He falls asleep when he's supposed to be watching them. It's a fun stuff that happens in the comic. Because there's Martians on Mars, so I don't even know why they didn't contact them in the first place to be like, hey, we're going to your planet. But they go there and they capture the astronauts while Mark's asleep, and Mark goes to rescue him, and he talks to the Martian King. He's like, hey, I'm supposed to be protecting these guys or whatever. And he explains that the squidoids, the squoids, whatever they call them, I call them squidoids. I'm gonna stick to that for right now. He's like, they attach themselves to human people and they control them. By themselves, they're this weak, harmless thing that in the comics they say they enslaved and they make them work. They didn't really mention if they do that in the show, or at least I don't remember if they did, or I don't think they did. He's like, but if they have a host body, they can, they become this big hive mind and they can do horrible, horrendous things. And just like when they crashed here, they lost their host bodies and they couldn't latch on to us Martians because we're always shifting around and they can't just get a hold of us. Which they mentioned on Mark 2, they can't get a hold of Mark because his skin's so thick they can't freaking penetrate it. But for the humans, they will be able to. So it's like, we have to execute these people. We're not going to even take a chance. And Mark's like, oh, okay. And then it skips to him escaping with the astronauts and trying to go back to Earth. Really cool action scenes and really great stuff. And then it ends with them showing that one of the astronauts was replaced by a Martian, which, spoilers, is Shapesmith if you read the comics. And one of the humans was left behind, one of the astronauts, and he's covered in squidoids, and he starts attacking the Martians, which will come into play later. He's, with the squids, whatever, are a semi-antagonist in the comics. They show up a few times, and they're pretty tough because, like I said, they can attach to people and control them, kind of like Staros. I think that's what they're based off of. Anyway, this has gone on long enough. A great episode. I give it a 9 out of 10. I got a 10 out of 10. Just 10 out of 10. I'm always 10 out of 10. It's good. I love it. Like I said, if you love the last 3 episodes, you're going to love this episode. It's on Amazon Prime right now. Just great stuff. I'm loving what they're doing with this animated series as a fan of the comic book. You should really go out and read the comic if you haven't. There's just so much fantastic stuff that happens in there. It's similar story. They hit all the big plots, but the way it goes about it is different. Like I said, when Robert Kirkman was writing the comic, he was figuring everything out and what he wanted to do. So little things that he wanted to do didn't work out in the comic, and they're working out better in the animated series, which I really like. As hindsight is 2020, so he gets to fix things up, make it flow better, make it a little bit more interesting. But the comic is just as good and better in some ways. Like I said, they're different, but they're both really good things. Alright, that's it. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace out.